to the plus or minus 100 divisions, there's still a mighty big job to do. How did you get the value technology spread throughout all of the company?
Well, Larry, I think that in my own mind, there is nothing that sells like results, and the people were getting results. And this includes the people who were trained on the job training in your office. But in addition, we very quickly saw results coming from those people who had the first seminar training. The interesting thing was that shortly after we completed the first seminar, there was a demand for the second seminar, and we decided that we had one experience, 4 weeks, 160 hours. Perhaps we could be more efficient ourselves, and so the program was cut back to 80 hours. We eventually went to 60 hours and then to 40 hours. And this is the way we were achieving our goal of 1,000 people. Maybe you'd like to tell a little bit of how it spread outside the company?
I think that's an important thing. That was a big bone of contention for me. Actually, as you know, people who don't understand it and already have high management authority are afraid to accept something they don't understand that may upset their chips. And it's absolutely true today and always has been. So many of management really hung back on having too many people know too much about this besides them, and they didn't have time to learn. However, Roy's group was teaching the doer people, so we were working from below, doing good work from below. Well, then came Bill Sredenchek. Or he was there all the time, but Bill says, Larry, the benefit to General Electric of value analysis is going to come when their customers will use it and make better products and win more of the orders and have to buy more motors and more switchgear of us. So we've got to take this out to our people. And so Bill set up appointments for us to go out and talk to customer companies. By golly, I've been out to California many times talking to utilities there to help them get turbine orders in Los Angeles. That was one thing. Some of the other management of the company hung back. I remember I got one letter from a vice president that said, we don't like approving these expense accounts for you to go out and talk to somebody out of the company about this. Just keep it low and keep it in the company. The other big thing was the purchasing market. General Electric spent hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and the big saving would come in purchasing if we got our suppliers to using it. Now, the only way to get the suppliers to use it is to take it out of the company. We have to go to the suppliers and show them how to use it. We did, in many cases, send a team of a couple value engineers for a couple of days on the supplier's product that we were using extensively. So it got out of the company very effectively, as Bill Sredenchek initially said it should be done, not just slopped out, by first telling our potential customers to build our orders, and then secondly telling our suppliers. One example I'd like to tell you, it got into the Navy. And the way it got into the Navy was Dr. Glenn Warren, the head of the turbine department, wanted a $20 million order for ship turbines. And it was touch and go. He had a lot of competition. So he came and he says, Larry, this is so good and the Navy needs it so much that I'd like to take value analysis to the Navy as a service to customers and in order to get that $20 million order. Well, fine, so I did, and he got the order. And that is another, just one step of the way it got out.
Larry, you've explained how the term value analysis came into being. There are a lot of other terms now applied to the field of value, but maybe you'd like to just explain how value engineering came about.
Well, I really would. Admiral Leggett, head of the Bureau of Ships, took a great interest in value analysis and sent some people up to learn it, and then had a seminar there, and Roy went down and helped put it on, and then had another one. And then he called me and he says, Larry, I have a problem. That value analysis is tremendous, and we can benefit the Navy so much, and we're starting to do it, but kind of illegally. We don't have any legal place to hire people to work that. We need value analysts, but we don't have one spot for an analyst in all of our brackets. On the contrary, I can put on hundreds of engineers, a sound engineer, a weight engineer, you name it, and I can put an engineer on. So I am going to have to change the name to value engineering. And at the same time, I'm going to have to do something else you won't like, and that is for the Navy to really get good from value engineering, we're going to have to teach it to your competitors. So I want you to well know now that we're going to take it, and it's going to be value engineering. We're going to teach it to your competition, but we'll get a lot of good from it. Right about that time, the word was getting around in the other installations of the government, and there are a number of places like the Watervliet Arsenal, a dozen of them around through the country, and the word was getting to them. So we also went and put on seminars. I think, wasn't it Ray Spenard at the Waterford Arsenal? Watervliet Arsenal. And they had projects just like we did and became enthusiastic and really did the country a lot of good and helped to spread good technique.
Miles and Fountain are joined by R. Glenn Woodward, a pioneer in value analysis.
Larry, what advice do you have for the loan value practitioner and his boss who wish to initiate or perpetuate an effective value program?
Glenn, you're giving thought to a very important subject because so many people have to start out with one at a time, and it's a very difficult job. The loan practitioner has to make friends. He has to get help. He is only one person with a very important job and a new kit of tools to use, and he needs help to use them. Very often he will pick up help in the accounting department. A finance man is a good supporter. He sits in the meetings when they're talking about the need for more earnings and what's happening, and he can put in a good word for the boss. Very often the friend will come from other than the finance department. In the engineering department, there's usually a variety of people. Some could care less about cost, but some do care about costs in their personal living and in their business living. And he will get acquainted with the proper one or two and get their support. Actually, he will find they will enjoy being active in support. And in other areas, of course, you all know we started in purchasing. And so purchasing people more often got the training first. And the purchasing people anyway, if they're properly matched to the job, are interested in getting something for the money. And so a man in the purchasing department can be a lot of help. His help will be in providing specific ideas and solutions from outside vendors who he can invite in, and also in getting management's support and getting support from the top of the company. The main theme here is that he does need help. The question has been raised, are these techniques still on trial? And we certainly ought to answer that once and for all. The world is full of people who have proven these techniques and are using them just as sure as they use Ohm's law. These techniques are true, they're not under test. The testing has been done. The only thing is, there are people who haven't learned the Ohm's law yet. We are on the subject of of implementation and how to achieve it. Let's start out with a fundamental that we have, I think, learned from experience, and that is that getting achievement from the value analysis work is best done by the people who are responsible for the work. If it is an engineering project, the engineer is the man who ought to be there, and he needs to be the man who wants some improvement in cost or quality. And so when he learns how to do it, it fits right into his work to go ahead and do it. It sounds very simple, but it isn't simple, and it hasn't been simple. However, nowadays it's so important to get the results that I believe that more than any other way, that is the way it's being done today. What experience do you folks have on that?
I think my experience is exactly the same. In the beginning, when we had the first program, we put people on projects for which they had no responsibility, because we recognized that creativity for them would be easier on something for which they had no responsibility. Now, the reason we ducked the issue, if you want to call it that, is that at that time on our staff we didn't have anybody who was an expert in creativity. So what we did, recognizing that need, we usually called on managers of the creative engineering program to come and give talks on creativity. But it wasn't quite the same, because when they had finished their talk, they were busy people and they walked out the back door. And that was all the input we ever had in the creative area. After we learned more about it and how to teach it and got some expertise in the creative area, we recognized that it would be easier to overcome the creativity problem and get better implementation if we got on the projects at least one person who was knowledgeable and experienced and had the responsibility for that project. Saying it just a little differently, if a man has a responsibility for a product line and we're going to teach him the techniques, we haven't gained very much unless that man eventually learns to apply the techniques on his own project.
A member of the Miles Schenectady Group went public in 1959. Dusty Folks formed Value Analysis Incorporated and has since trained many thousands in one-week value analysis seminars. Miles reminisces with Folks on a 1983 visit to Chicago.
Here we were with a beautiful set of